Well, hi, thanks for that, Sophie. Thumbs up. Hello, evening, everybody. We are now live for our regular Zoom meeting. Just before we get going, I'm just going to quickly whiz around my screen as I see it. I'll come to you first, Matt, if you can just say who you are.
Councillor Matthew Holmes, Derby City Council. I represent Mickleover Ward.
Lovely, as always, to have you here, Matt. Owen.
Hello, I'm the president of the Union of Students, University of Derby.
Lovely to have you here, Owen. And Chris.
Hi, good evening. I'm Chris Clayton, Chief Exec of the NHS in Derby and Derbyshire.
And again, lovely to have you here, Chris. Really great. You were just saying you were ex-GP, and I was just about to list my ailments, but then it suddenly occurred to me it would take the whole half hour, 45 minutes that we have. Just to say up front as well, I'm going to have to leave. Apologies. I'm back in London today. Business has changed. I'm doing the adjournment debate, so apologies. And it's quite the topic for the adjournment debate is around the report from Telford that you might have seen and into the child exploitation. So it's clearly a really important debate. So I'm going to, apologies, leave and go into there. But Matt, it will be in your very capable hands as always. So just before we get going, Owen, I noticed behind you, you've got an array of sunflowers. Now, what is that? Are they real?
No, if only. They would be dead by now, I can tell you that. Oh. No, so that's all just a little mock-up that we've done in terms of the re-establishment, or rather I guess realigning what the sunflower actually means. So a lot of the time people have been using the sunflower lanyards or the sunflower badges, whatever it be, to basically say that they're mask exempt, which isn't the case. It is just about making people aware that a person has a disability, be that a hidden one. And so that's just done in the shape of the US that we have. So Union of Students, we abbreviate that down to an US, so not US, because we're not United States. It is an US. But although that would make my job sound a lot more interesting if I was the president of the US, but we can't go into that.
your job's really interesting in any case, and I know, because we've met a couple of times, what an amazing job you do as well. But the sunflower is really interesting. And sorry, I wasn't going to sort of have a whole conversation around this, but I was out walking my dogs before I came to London last night, and a friend of mine had a sunflower crop last year that was brilliant, and this year it's failed. But as I was walking my dog last night, I sort of did this is probably why I've got one of my ailments, Chris, actually my shoulder hurting. I sort of did a turn, and they were the largest sunflowers I've ever seen in somebody's garden. It must have been at least 8 foot high, and at least maybe, I don't know what size, is that about 2 feet wide? It was huge. And there may be about 8 of them. But anyway, I'm waffling about sunflowers, and maybe I shouldn't. So that's really interesting, though. And it's just made me maybe think of a first, just a question, really. And well, I was looking at the list of questions that we've had sent in. Now let's stick to those, and maybe I'll come back to some flowers later. Just thinking though, I've got a question here, which is about where and when to use each medical service, and if somebody's trying to get a doctor, what other services are best to use. And I think this is something really close to my heart, actually, and I don't normally do so much talking as this, I know, but I had a situation the other day where I had to I went on holiday with my granddaughter, and I don't think I was particularly annoying, but I don't know. But anyway, when they came back, they needed medical assistance, what my daughter did, and she had to have an emergency operation. So she had to go to the doctors on the Monday. She had an operation on the Tuesday, and she was out by the Wednesday. And when I was talking to one of the nurses there, that what they were saying was the reason why it had been very so efficient, if you like, was because my daughter had followed the right procedure. So she'd phoned up the GP surgery, they triaged. The surgery then booked a meeting with her. They then phoned up the surgical unit to see if there was availability. And that in itself really released the system. So instead of going to A&E, where that could have potentially have clogged it up, she was going through the right system. So Chris, I thought maybe come to you first on this. And Matt, I know you work for the NHS, and obviously this will be useful for all the students that are coming through. But is there a right way, do you think, to do this?
Well, I think, Amanda, I mean, that your own personal case highlights lots of different things, isn't it? Because the truth is, the health and care system has changed massively, particularly the NHS since it was first created. And back then we had a very few limited ways of accessing healthcare, but now it's very different, and because it's very different, it can be very confusing. And so you're absolutely right about trying to do the right thing. And I think first thing I say is most people, try to do the right thing all the time, but the question is, do they know where to access and
Yeah.
how to seek help? And so what we're trying to do in the NHS is help people work through that. So yes, you're right. I would personally agree that was the right pathway of care, as we call it, for your daughter. It worked very effectively and well, interacting with general practice and then hospital care. But not everybody knows what to do, and not everybody knows, the symptoms they're getting, where to turn. And so that's what we're trying to do in the NHS, is help people work through it. So obviously, if you think you've got an emergency going on, everybody knows, if they think they're having a heart attack or stroke, 999. But when it's not as clear cut of that, where do you go? And if you are, thinking about going to A&E, if you are thinking about, you've got a condition that you want to be seen, 111, a great resource online, really helpful. If you're less sure about that, the NHS online access service is really helpful. Symptom checker, again, helping you understand which services to go to. And of course, we've got range of advice there on our high streets with our pharmacy colleagues out there, providing a wealth of advice. So you're absolutely right. That worked for you, but there are lots of different scenarios. And hopefully lots of different ways to help our public work out how best to use the health and care services.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point, actually. And I'm going to come to you, Owen, next, about how maybe we can support students. But actually, I had a situation where I'd fallen and was bitten by an insect as well. And my leg kept on swelling and the infection kept on getting worse. So I went to the pharmacy. And the pharmacy were absolutely brilliant. And they said, well, actually, we do think you need to go to an emergency, but go to Ilkeston, because that's it was from the Wyvern that they sent me there. And again, it was I was pretty much in and out really quickly. But I think, again, it's about that right pathway, isn't it? Because this is where the NHS excels, is when it's an emergency. But also it's about us having a duty of care not to overclog, but being cared for. Because whenever something happens to us, we do genuinely, we feel that pain, or we might feel very fractious about it. But Owen, what about students? I mean, how do, because we've got Freshers Week approaching, is this a problem, do you think?
You'll have to forgive me, as you were going through the initial explanation, my headset just decided to stop working. So I'll try and grasp onto what the conversation was as best as I can. But in terms of like the support that is given out to students, obviously coming around through September, we've got around 20,000 plus students that will just be coming on site on a regular basis. And I think there's a massive duty of care for the union and the university to actually provide for the students. And we do that through a number of different ways. And it is mostly just about that signposting and making sure that students are aware. So we've got, again, a lot of different organisations, external organisations, that we get involved with. So for example, SV2, when we talk about sexual violence support, we also talk about obviously the 111 line as well. We talk about 999 and where it's appropriate. But we also have, again, mostly within the remit of students, it is around that safety in the nighttime economy, at least. That's what we found, at least the increase of reports through that. So we actually have dedicated members of staff that are trained up sexual violence liaison officers. So we offer a plethora of support, and we try not to burden ourselves too much with taking on everything, but we try and offer out as much support as possible with those external organisations and having as many link-ins as possible. So we try and give that out, especially around that freshers period, where we have over 2 days around about 7,000 students coming in and out, trying to get a bunch of freebies and hopefully educate them when they come into a new environment that is for them. So yeah, we try and do a lot around it, and it's a massive duty for us, but we take that on full-heartedly.
No, Owen, and thank you for all of that, because it's Freshers Week. You obviously you deal with an awful lot of people who are maybe in a different environment, and everything that you're saying, and I know the care that we give in University of Derby, it's just fantastic, and thank you to all of your team. But it's not just you, is it? You do have a team who are there for help as well.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a dedicated union advice team, and this is replicated across different unions as well. So it's not just at the University of Derby. I think it's become sort of best practice in terms of how we can support students, and that stems from outside of, I suppose, when we talk about sexual violence, it also provides support for disciplinaries and anything that goes on within university life. But we also have a very close relationship with the university, given with their wellbeing staff, and we also have a GP on site. So it's all very heavily linked in, and it is just about giving that pastoral care to students.
And I guess the message is, isn't it? Don't be afraid to use that care as well. It's so important. Yeah, I'm going to come to you, Matt. Ironically, I hadn't sort of realised, but obviously you work in the NHS as well. I mean, your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I would say from my own experience as a dad and a husband, my family has had a really good experience with the 111 service. Thankfully, it's not very often you have to ring 999. I've done it a couple of times, or 2 or 3 times, in situations not involving my family, but you're out and about and you see something or whatever, and you assist it. And that's been in London, that's been I think the other one was in Skegness, and there was probably one in Derby. And all of those times, the reaction time to a couple of quite serious situations was very quick. So it's been excellent. And in terms of my family requiring sort of advice and help, it's been the 111 service online and by the telephone is excellent. It's an excellent way to get advice, and then they can guide you towards the best way of resolving that. Sometimes it's just a pharmacy visit, sometimes it's arranging to go and see a local doctor, and sometimes they may advise you to go to A&E in some circumstances. So I think, as Chris has said, it's about that pathway really. And choosing that from a ward councillor's point of view. One of the things which I think, and I know you're working on this with us, Amanda, as MP for Derby North. I think one of the concerns that many residents have, but certainly in areas where there's a lot of new housing and the population growth, is the pressure on GP services. And I think that from a ward councillor point of view is something which I know that you are directly working with us on, Amanda. So it's really appreciated with the CCG. And I think there is some improvement to be made in that area about provision. The speed of when you can see how long it may take to go and see a GP sometimes, and that's just genuine feedback that I'm getting from our residents locally. So I think there is work to do on that, but overall, I see the NHS every single day, and it's fantastic. Everybody is just so amazing, really, at all levels of the NHS, whether it be behind the scenes and the front line. And it's been a tough few years, and whilst there's always improvements needed, all the time, we can always improve. I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that what a brilliant health service we have in this country, and it's something we should be really thankful for.
Yeah, and just to take this opportunity, Chris, to say thank you to you for everything that you guys do. I've got close family relatives who are in the nursing profession, and it's not to be underestimated the care that they all give. So a sincere thank you. Well, across the whole of the NHS. Just moving on, and you're right, Matt. Obviously, GP access is a concern. Yes, we are working on that all the time, really. But just moving on from that, but also kind of sticking with the same subject, from just moving to mental health. As mental health is an absolute passion of mine, as in trying to encourage good mental health. And poor mental health can affect us individually, but of course having somebody who has poor mental health in a family or in a friend can also have an impact on people as well. And Owen, I'm thinking of coming to you first, because from a university point of view, you take people from a home environment or from a familiar environment and coming to somewhere different. What kind of support can you get at the university?
Yeah, so again, there's a lot of support that we offer. So we actually have dedicated counsellors on site, and that's managed through the wellbeing team. So should a student need it, and there's like a whole application process through that, that they can actually seek counsellor support and actually get some appointments booked through. But I suppose there's a lot of, I suppose, lack of a better term, like gateway conversations that can be had with that through the advice service and through academics, that they are able to sort of signpost that, and through any member of staff here at the university. I mean, we have quite a good work link with Samaritans as well. So we have drop-in sessions once a month, so that students, should they need to talk to someone in a confidential room and just air out their problems, that they're there to listen. And it is ultimately about letting students know that no matter what, no matter who you talk to, that there is someone there to listen, and if not, then to signpost you onto someone that will.
Yeah. And do you have any tips on resilience, any of you? I'll come to you maybe, Chris. And any tips that you could think of how to cope with a different situation? I don't know whether you come across a lot of mental health issues in your life, particularly thinking of poor mental health, but do you have any ways that you deal with it, or people who are able to help themselves?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, happy to add into the conversation. So if we think about the days when I was a practicing doctor, I used to talk about the three things that we all face in our lives. As we've got physical health, our mental and emotional health, and our social health. And those three things really are sort of the underpinning of all of us. And what's going on in any moment is usually a balance of those three things. So in terms of helping our mental health and our well-being, let's not forget those other aspects. Let's think of our social health. Let's think of our physical health. And not just think about the sort of immediate challenge that we've got in front of us, but how do we create that resilience across them? So before I start talking about support for emotional health and well-being specifically, let's just think about eating well, drinking well, exercise. Let's think about family. Let's think about friends and that social support that we have. Let's and really important when you thinking about students, coming to a new city or whatever. Let's think about not losing connection. Let's think about that network that you have that's there around you, and whilst you build a new network. So specifically though about emotional health and well-being, linking to what Owen was saying about the support specifically for students through the university and the union. But let's have a think. Derby and Derbyshire's got an emotional health and well-being webpage. Some great access there, loads of different materials and support there, depending on what challenges that you may or may not be facing, and where to go for support. But also, don't forget, if you are in real difficulties, so sometimes people are, and we recognise that, we've got a 24/7 mental health support line available for anybody in Derby and Derbyshire that's there, and obviously we'll signpost to that through Owen and colleagues. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it'd be great. We'll share that signposting as well. So we'll just make sure that people know where to be signposted to. And I think for me, a big thing is please talk to somebody. And I know it seems a simple thing to say, but it's actually really hard to do. And do talk to somebody. And the big thing that I think is if we just notice if somebody is acting different or acting out of sorts, and just somebody who's normally, even they could be quiet, but they're becoming more frantic, if you like, or somebody who is usually quite gregarious and becomes very quiet. It's what's different to that person. And I think it's just being really being alert and just being there for people as well. And one of the things that I feel really passionately about, as you know, sadly my cousin, he did take his life when he was 36, and particularly men's mental health is thinking about actually it's okay not to be okay. And I think that is a really important message that we should and could be saying to people. Matt, do you have any views on this before I sort of move on?
I would say that absolutely. What Chris has said, there's a wealth of resource there, and it's fantastic that if we publicise the resources there that the NHS have got locally. I would say my personal experience of working in two currently in two very large organisations, one of them being the NHS, and obviously Derby and Burton Trust, part of that, and then the council itself. Now, I'm a counsellor rather than an employee, but we work in the same environment, and I know for a fact that there's superb support there for both NHS workers within the local trust, and that will be replicated across all trusts in the UK, and in the council as well. There's a network, and there's information on notice boards, there's information on the intranet, there's training, there's lots of things, and that resource is there. It's not hidden. It's, if you want it, you can go, and it's there for support. And I think that's a fantastic thing, and that is something that I've seen over the last 20 years increase massively within organisations. It's good to see, and I think that every whether it's a small business, medium size, or even a large organisation, should have that mechanism in place. Even if the in-house resource isn't there to deal with that, they obviously can look for external resources as well and signpost. And I think that's the thing about talking and being and having the information there to actually seek support and help, because that's absolutely vital. You shouldn't have to suffer. You can talk to somebody and and get the help that you deserve and you need.
And Owen, just coming back to you before we move on, and if there's anything that I can do to help, if you can think of anything, then do let us know. But I think we were talking about maybe lived experience as well. I think if there's things to be shared on that, then please do let me know. And I think I'd like to also encourage any sort of students, if there is something that I can do, I am there, MP, I'm here to help if they live in the constituency. So don't hesitate to come and see me. There's nothing that is too small on that. What I'd like,
before you move on, man,
yes,
can
please,
I just say as well, from
yeah.
my, I mean, obviously I didn't go to university, but I've experienced it with one of my daughters, and I think we probably underestimate how stressful moving away from home to I'd say a strange town. I mean, obviously you go and see where you're going and everything, but I don't think you can't overestimate how hard that can be. New friendship groups, new situations, the stress of the course, all those things. And I think, it is a really stressful thing for students. And I commend Owen and the university. I joined you to go to see the facilities. And, the support there is actually fantastic. But that's something I think needs to be recognised of how difficult it is, because they're not only trying to create a career and build towards the degree, but they've got all the social aspects and a new place and looking after themselves sometimes for the first time. It's very difficult.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's thank you for our visit, Owen. It was really fantastic. I just I am going to have to go. Apologies, as you know, I said I'm doing the German debate, but just before, I think it would be really helpful just to have a think about moving into professions, because obviously there are a variety of professions that you can have in the health service, and I just wonder. Matt's just said didn't go to university. I didn't go to university. There's different routes that you can take. I mean, Chris, maybe you could just enlighten us. Are there different routes into getting to healthcare profession? Because it must be, again, it's a huge profession.
Yeah, and I was having a conversation with a colleague earlier today, and when we think about, if I just focus on the NHS, even though I'm connected across health and social care, and if I think about the NHS, a colleague said to me, Chris, you do realise there's over 300 different professionals who work in the NHS alone. I mean, that's staggering. And I know that when we think about the NHS, we probably automatically think of nursing and being doctors and things like that. But actually, let's think about the NHS and the infrastructure it has and the different services it has. So the first thing to think of is, let's think of the NHS. So a statistic really about 1 in 50 people in the country work for the NHS in one way, shape or form. It's enormous. And so if we think about all the different careers that supports, administration, management, obviously the direct professions, but in terms of the clinical ones alone, the variation that there are is quite staggering. So if you think about what are the routes in, well, they are broad. So if we think about doctors and nurses, there are obviously traditional ways traditional ways that we're all, aware of, and the different degree and college courses that take. But actually, there is a broad array. So if I could sort of signpost anybody to something, it'd be Joined Up Careers Derbyshire.
Okay.
Put that into Google.
Yes.
It's a really great way of seeing what's out there, what we do, how we connect, how we start to work both with colleges, universities, schools, but also how do we work directly with employers of all different types to get that different ways in, because we're such a varied employer.
That's really interesting. Owen, did you know about that? Have you Googled them before, and do you give careers advice to students?
So I personally haven't, but I know that we have a very in-depth career service here at the university, so that's managed by the university. So I imagine that they've passed on many students, and we do have quite an in-depth nursing and social care programs here at the university as well. And yeah, we do have a lot of students coming in specifically for those courses, because Derby itself does a really good job of actually giving that applied learning for it. So, but no, I'll definitely have a look into it and perhaps do a better job at signposting.
No, that's just really helpful, Chris, and thank you for sharing that. So Owen, what about? I'm just thinking of when you say careers advice. Is there anything that you particularly are able to do you find that a lot of people who are coming to Derby, that they know what it is they want to do, or are they coming to seek more careers advice? Are they studying something that keeps doors open to them?
I think it's quite varied, actually. I know that I came into university with, I think it was like 6 months prior to actually applying to university, that I figured out that I actually wanted to do forensic science, and I got heavily involved in that. And it all started off with the typical TV programs of CSI Miami, the whole lot. And then obviously really getting myself educated into the area that I wanted to eventually study, which I did and graduated. But I think there's so many different students that come to university with a different angle on it. I think a lot of students come into it, actually, I don't know what I want to do, but I know I want to go to university. I know what I want to sort of leave myself open for that sort of higher level of employment and really gain that experience. And quite a lot of students actually come here for the university experience in itself, because it's a very unique experience that you don't really experience anywhere else. And that comes in part with obviously the sports societies and whatever else activities that you can get involved with. And I think that just all embeds itself within the academia of it all. But yeah, there isn't, I wouldn't say that there's one particular student that knows exactly, or is that there isn't a specific student that comes to university that ticks all the boxes of, yes, they know what they want to do, yes, they're going to go into this career path, etc. I think even for myself, coming into this role, obviously having graduated in forensic science, this isn't a typical forensic science role, that it's really opened myself up to more avenues, and it's just about gaining more and more experience and finding out, new passions, things like that. So yeah, it's all a journey that I don't think any of us know the destination of, really.
No. And do you know, you said something so important. Every day it's about learning. I always think about my nan, who was 97 when she died, and she was still doing an Excel spreadsheet. I think you've heard me say this before, Matt, but she was still doing a computer course, and I found all these scarves that she was still knitting at 97 that had got holes in, but she was still doing it. And it's about just stimulating your mind as well. But you also mentioned sport as well. I mean, is that an important part of the university, Owen, that lots of sport activities?
I am biased to it because, I definitely took part in terms of sports societies. So yeah, I think it is, again, a massive part in terms of that community building. So, and there's so much when it comes in part of community that and when we link back to mental health, that it is actually a massive supporting factor of it. Because you obviously have the physical activity, but then it's also that social aspect of it. And you're really able to find your community at university. And again, linking back to what you said earlier around, some students are going to find it difficult to actually settle themselves into university life. And that is a big part of it, is just finding your place and getting involved with things that you perhaps weren't even thinking of before you started university, but have really dug yourself deep into it and just thought, this is for me. And again, it's that university experience. It is a whole, like, there is endless possibilities of it. It's just making sure that you're pushing yourself out there as much as possible.
And I think we're doing something around this in Parliament, actually, just a group of us trying to combat loneliness, because even though we're a group of lots of people, you can actually be very lonely, because it's a very unsociable hours, but you don't always know people. And sport comes, I'm trying to set up a rounders team, if you know anybody who's there. I don't know if I mentioned it, any good at rounders. I'm not sure that's a rounders swing, I've got to be honest. That's my backhand at tennis, but it is around having activities. So it could be a quiz, it could be rounds, it just could be something that encourages people to get together. Now, I apologize, I am going to have to go, Matt, so I'm going to hand over to you. But just quickly before I go, I just wonder, anybody watching any good series on TV at the minute?
I've seen quite a few. Stranger Things is good, but obviously most people have seen that.
Yeah. We watched the Sandman.
Yes. Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah, it's very good.
The Lincoln Lawyer is good.
Yeah, just sorry, Matt, just go back to Sandman. If you've not seen it, you have to watch it.
All right, I'll start watching it then.
Second time. It's awesome, isn't it? It's really.
Which platform is that on? With the caveat that there's others available as well.
There are lots of others. I don't.
Is it an app? Is it a Netflix one? Oh yeah.
It's
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
but honestly, the series is absolute knockout. Are you watching anything, Chris, at the minute?
Do you know, I've just finished watching Better Call Saul, which, if you think about Breaking Bad, and that, how long that was on for, and then Better Call Saul finishing off, it was really good. Yes.
Interesting. And so anyway, I was just looking for something, because I finished the Sandman and I'm depressed. I think it's like, I need to watch something else. It was, did you just love it, Owen?
Honestly, yeah, it just had a bit of everything in it. I don't understand, like, because it's something that just came about and I recommended for Netflix, and can't say I regret it, because it honestly was very good, and production value as well. Knocked it out the park.
Right. I'm definitely writing that down. I'm gonna start watching that Sandman.
Okay, I would, honestly. Matt, over to you.
All right, have a good one, Amanda, and we'll see you soon.
See you in 4 weeks. Take care. Bye.
See you later. So,
bye.
What have we got left? Let's have a look. We've got about eight minutes left or something like that. So actually, one thing that I would like to do, if it's okay with you two, and I'll pick on Chris first. So you've got a little time to think about this, Owen. But you introduce yourself, Chris, and I'm sure your job is very complex, very busy, and lots of challenges. But could you give us just a flavour of an average day? Just give people an understanding of what an average day to day would be. What you do, what kind of things that you're organising, the meetings you're in, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, happy to. So a lot of colleagues and folk watching won't know what I do, and so it's a really good opportunity to talk about it. So, and it's a strange one when I talk, in conversation, socially, people think, Chris, why are you doing that job? You trained as a doctor, and what are you doing now? So my role essentially is to make sure that we have the health and care services that we need for the population that we have, and the challenges that they have, and the care that they need, and that they have. And so my job is, on a day-to-day basis, is making sure that we do have the services out there. We understand what the health needs of our population are and how they change over time, and how we plan for them in the future. And that we, not only that we have the services, that they are the quality that we want them to be, that we've got the coverage and the spread, because in this call we've talked about a range of things, from physical health to mental health, and so the NHS has to make sure that it has those services out there. So in any given day, I will have a range of meetings in the diary, have conversations with people, about different aspects of the NHS, different aspects of the services that are going on, how they're performing, how they're doing against the demands that are coming in, the resources that we have, and if we need to move resources. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a flavour, and it links, if I could finish, Matt, for me, it links to, it always comes full circle about being a doctor, because I'm looking after the health of the population, just a different scale to what I was when I was in general practice. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'll just follow up question then, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that being a doctor is diagnosis, treatment, the outcome would be cure or somebody being healthier or whatever. Do you find that you do that with your job now? Because obviously you're juggling lots of balls all over the place, trying to, whether it be increased provision or something's changing within a service, or there's something, you're always moving forward. So how do you manage that process? Because, you know, you have, right, this is the project, or this is what we're trying to achieve. How do we get there? How do you manage that really in terms of making sure you do get the outcomes? I mean, is it a hard job, or do you have to work as a team? Do you personally have to lead on some of those things and make sure you get the outcomes?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, if we think about the NHS, I said earlier, it's an enormous family, isn't it? It employs thousands and thousands of people locally in Derby and Derbyshire. So if you think about that whole family, then you need a structure that supports that family to deliver. And there's that very specific role that I play isn't role I do in isolation. Of course, there's a team of colleagues that support that, but we have. It's really important that we have a sort of oversized strategic role of what's going on. And so if you think about that, some of the work I'm involved in takes longer. If it takes, you know, it's less immediate than what you were describing in the consulting room. You know that problem presenting itself, and examination, diagnosis, you know, and treatment. It's the work that we're involved in takes a lot longer, and so there's a lot of careful thought and planning that goes into what are the health needs of the population now. How are they changing? What do we need to plan for in the future? And so, yeah, you're absolutely right to think about taking that view of how change happens and be really, really clear on the things that you need to put into that process to see it through, to keep coming back to how are we doing against that strategic change. So you're absolutely right, very, very different. But I do personally, I do try and think of, put a doctor slant on it, experience about being a manager. What do our patients need, as and wants, and those sort of things. So I hope that helps, Matt.
It does. So, Owen, I don't know. Obviously, you're waiting for the students to arrive for freshers and all of that. So, your day to day, if you could sort of project maybe whatever you want, whether it's be prepping like this, what the average day would be, or when you're in the thick of it, you know, in the next couple of months. So just give us a flavour of what the job is in terms of President Student Union, and what your role would be on an average day.
Yeah, so again, my role is quite I guess different to what you would expect in an everyday role, I suppose. But as president, I basically oversee everything that the union does. And that sounds like a lot of duty on me, but there is a massive team behind that as well. And it is just about delivering mostly on the manifesto points that I was elected in on. So it is an elected role. The students vote on that, and there's a whole campaigns period for it as well. Unfortunately, I was Vice President Welfare last year as well, so I'm fortunate to have been in this position for now 2 years. But then obviously taking on presidency takes a whole another look at it. But in terms of my day-to-day, it is mostly just around replying to the hundreds and hundreds of emails, but it's mostly around setting up and preparing for the manifestos and setting them into place. So mine are around student safety, belonging, and extracurricular and life skills. And I can go into depth, but we'll be here all day. But they are, the main premise of it is just around that community and how students can build themselves to be more independent. And that student safety piece is just around, you know, making it both safer on and off campus. So my day-to-day can vary. It is a very, very unique role. Wouldn't change for the world, because it changes every day. And I kind of appreciate that level of change and, you know, having a different day every day. But yeah, it's a very difficult role to describe, especially when friends or acquaintances ask me, you know, what do you do for a job? I can never really formulate it into like a short sentence. It's just like, well, how much time do you have? But in all, it is just about representing the students and making sure that their voices are heard and giving back ultimately to the community, and making sure that I see it from the angle of I've been elected in by the students, so it's about how can I give back to that community and grow from the experiences that I've had and make that much better for the university. So there's a lot of conversations that I had, a lot of high up meetings with the university exec, and just really getting down on a personal basis in terms of, how can we better the experience for students. So yeah, it is extremely unique, but yeah.
So 2 things before we finish up then. How long is your term? And also, if we project this to Amanda's job, being an MP in Derby North, she holds surgeries, she's there to represent residents, and residents can get in touch with her about lots of different issues to help and seek support. Do you have that as well? Do you have a surgery or the equivalent at the university, or how does it work?
So very interesting. I suppose, like, to start off on your second point there, it's different. It has its similar elements in terms of, where we hold meetings in terms of listening to students and having that whole group of students and having their voices heard. But yeah, I suppose in that sense of it being an elected role and offering that care to the community, or to a certain community, it has that very similar aspect to it. And a lot of people that have actually gone through this role have also gone on to the National Union of Students, which is the governing body, I think, for lack of a better term, that basically manage us and have that whole overview of every union in the country, which people from there have effectively gone on to be members of parliament, gone into, just basically be within that hemisphere. So it's student politics, if you will, just to condense it down into that. And just remind me of your first question.
How long you in the job for?
Right. So this is, you're elected for a year. You can only do 2 years a max. So as I say, I was vice president welfare last year. This year I'm president, and so my term will end in July. So it starts in July, ends in July, and then after that I have to leave the nest, as it were. I'm no longer allowed to be as cushy as I am in this familiar environment of the university. So after that, you can only do 2 years. Have to leave the organisation, and can only apply back to join in any sort of permanent role after 3 years. So again, very interesting, but yeah.
I wish you all the best, and I know you're going to do a fantastic job, and you're going to be busy in the next few weeks and months, I'm sure, but it's going to be great. Right, so I think we've run out of time. So what Amanda does normally is we just have like wise words or closing things you want to say, and I'll say mine will be on behalf of Amanda. She always says be kind to others, and I would add be kind to yourself as well. It keys into looking after yourself, and if you are struggling at all, then hopefully we've explained that there is some resources out there, and I'm sure that we're going to post some various links and whatnot there. So if you are having a hard time, then please speak to somebody, and you can seek support. Chris, wise words, closing you want to say, positive, just trying to finish this on a positive note. It's over to you.
Yeah, so just on the film theme, there's a film that I watched with my daughters, and extending the sort of kindness thing. There was a phrase there: have courage and be kind. So I really like that as a sort of guiding principle. And then just based on this conversation about well-being, life's a marathon, not a sprint. And I just think sometimes we forget that in the rush. So if I could leave you with that. Thank you.
Very, very wise words. Owen, over to you for the final thing of this Q&A.
I don't think I'm going to be able to top that, but I think the one that comes to mind is strength in numbers. And I mean that in the sense of like a community. And I am very strong on community in that sort of sense of belonging, just because of, I suppose, the pandemic that we've all experienced and how disconnected it's been. That I think realigning that and making sure that, that we're not in any of this alone. Perhaps that's a better one. We're not in it alone. That there is a whole community there that have perhaps experienced the same thing, or going to experience the same thing as you. And it's just about building that up again. And I very much believe in that.
Brilliant. Well, there you go. Hasn't time flown? We've come to the end once again. Chris, Owen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely brilliant, and I hope people watching this have enjoyed it. And we'll see you again soon. So bye.
Thank you. Bye now.